In order to create a painting or drawing that looks three-dimensional, we have to create value by mimicking highlights, midtones, and shadows. But what are highlights, midtones, and shadows? Highlights are where the light hits an object the strongest, shadows are where there is an absence of light, and the midtones are all the values in between. Anyone who is new to art tends to draw or paint by outlining the shapes of an object. For instance, pretend that this block of clay is a piece of paper and I am a new artist who has been asked to draw a face on it. Gorgeous. Now, if we were to shine a light on this, you would get the idea that it is a face because of the lines that we have just drawn. They could be very easily interpreted as facial features, but it doesn't look realistic at this moment. It kind of just looks like a blockhead. So now let's pretend that we have been asked as a beginner artist to shape this clay into a head. The first thing we would probably do is take this clay and begin to shape it into a type of sphere because we know that the shape of a head is similar to that form. Even though we are watching all of this on a screen, a monitor, maybe even a cell phone, we can still tell that this piece of clay is starting to look more round and more realistic because of where the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows are. When objects are rounded, our highlights, midtones, and shadows blend into each other, creating gradients. In order to paint realism, we need to think about how we would paint the gradients between our highest highlights and our darkest shadows. Now, if we were to shine a light on this, it would look very different than the original blockhead. Now we're going to take a look at this poor fellow who needs a little extra skin, but he's a perfect model for what we are trying to understand. Check out how the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows appear when the flashlight moves around him. Now pretend that this flashlight is any kind of light source. It could be the sun, a cell phone, it could be a light in your house, really just any light source. Depending on where the flashlight is, the highlights, the shadows, and the midtones will look different. Another aspect that would affect our highlights, midtones, and shadows is what color of lighting is shining on us. Similar to me shining this flashlight through this transparent blue square. So, if you have chosen to paint your subject in a Grisaille grayscale painting first, then what I have just shown you is a very basic demonstration of how your painting process will work. When you begin, you will only focus on your highlights, midtones, and shadows in white, gray, and black paint. Afterward, you can begin adding transparent layers of color on top to mimic skin color, object color, and lighting. The alternative to this is by repeating the exact same steps as the grayscale Grisaille painting, except with the object's local color. Okay, so for instance, the last ball of clay we shaped was a white ball of clay. But what if we began with an orange ball of clay instead? Now, we would still be focusing on our highlights, midtones, and shadows exactly the same way, except instead of no color pigment, we would only be focusing on one color pigment. Afterward, we would still be adding glazes of color like we did with our last example as well, except now these glazes of color will react more realistically with your underpainting because that local color is more true to life.